Whatever it is he wants you to do, he's asking you to do, he's made it clear through his word, do it. And then you go to the next step in the process. But God is not going to save the nation through Gideon until he can save Gideon. That was another really good one you guys missed. He's not going to save the whole nation of Israel, God's people, until he can save Gideon. It starts with one. It starts with one. It starts with one. Gideon followed in the small thing. And what I find interesting about this too is that as I read through, it's just kind of a side note, but when I read through a story like this, I often wonder, was he actually the first round draft pick? Or was he like second, third, fourth, fifth round draft pick because the other people said no, and God's just up there going, well, first 11 said no. Well, who's 12th on the list? Well, it's some dude named Gideon. Do you know where he's at? Yeah, he's in a wine press, threshing out wheat. Well, all right, let's just go. Let's go him. He's next on the list. I mean, or was he actually number one? Was he the number one draft pick? I have no idea. But it does make me wonder. It does make me wonder, whatever it is that God puts in my heart to do, did 7 other people say no before he came to me? Or am I it? But here's what I do know. Whatever it is God's calling me to do, if it involves other people and I'm not going to engage in it, God's still going to get it done. I'm just going to be the one who misses out on the miraculous. And I'm going to wonder, why didn't God let me be a part of that? Why doesn't God ever use my life for the big things? And the simple answer is because I won't let God do the small things in my life. You want to do the big things? Then do the small things. Whatever the small thing right now in your life is that you think is not a big thing, to God, you need to recognize it's actually bigger than you think. And God's waiting for you. He's waiting for you so that he can then do the next thing. So we look at this whole thing. What an absolute chaotic scene right here. And I'm going to tell you right now that you're not going to get all of your notes today because I'm only going to hit point number 1. So don't freak out about not getting your fill-ins today. We're just going to hit point number 1, and then we're going to come in for a landing. Guys, what we got to realize, this whole thing, again, it's about what? Defeating our enemies. Coming to that restoration, that peace that only God can lead me to. But before I can experience this peace and this rest, these enemies need to be defeated in my life. One by one, by one, by one, by one. And I'm in this process with God as that's all happening. And I'm not going to be in the stands watching him do this. I'm going to be engaged on the field with him. And God is going to do incredible things all around me. And he's also going to ask me to do some things in this process. So, why was Gideon included in the nation being restored? The enemy of this nation being defeated. Why was God including Gideon in this? Why did he say yes to Gideon? What's that all about as he's leading his people to peace and rest? And the first thing, and the only thing we're going to talk about today is that he believed God. It was all about faith. It was all about faith. He believed God. It says in Judges 6:12, the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, mighty hero, the Lord is with you. And he's thinking, mighty hero, are you nuts? I am hiding from the enemy in here. What do you think I'm doing inside this wine press where they can't find me? If I was a mighty hero, I'd be out there in plain sight threshing this wheat where they could come out and I could take them on. I'm no mighty hero. What are you talking about? But he hears these words. I'm not even following you. Who are you? The Lord is with you. Yahweh, you've come to me? Makes me think about the New Testament verse, while we were still sinners, far from God, Christ died for us. He came to us. That's grace. That's the incredible story of grace. We can't get away from grace. It keeps coming to us. And this is a grace. Here's Gideon living defeated, accepting the rules of the enemy. And God's grace shows up. God's presence literally shows up. And he begins to speak over his life, who he's becoming. Hey, if you will accept this, Gideon, I want you to know who you're going to be becoming. I want you to know what I'm going to do in your life. You will be a mighty hero. Not me. What? Can't be me. But then somewhere in this process in his mind, or as he's talking to the angel of the Lord, he starts saying, could it be me? maybe he could do this. Maybe if I responded to God, he could do this. Maybe he started to recognize, well, if God came to me, maybe he actually wants me to respond to him. Maybe all this guilt that I'm feeling as I'm standing in the presence of holiness, maybe he wants me to respond. And not to just live in the shame, but to actually rise above it and to ask for his help. Maybe he actually wants to restore me. I'm not sure exactly what went on in his mind, but something did, because he flipped a switch. And he humbled himself. And I'll tell you what he did. He wound up giving his gift of faith to God. You see, each one of us have a gift of faith. Every one of us have one. You don't have 10. You don't have 100. You don't have 4. You have one. One gift of faith. Notice in the story, God didn't say, oh man, Baal and Asherah, they're bad. So I want you to go build an altar right next to it and then include me in the worship. You can split your faith. He didn't say that. He said, I want it all. There's no cutting this gift in half. Can't cut it in thirds, can't cut it in eighths. Pick the number, the fraction. Can't. It's all or it's nothing. I want you to rip down that altar to Baal. I want you to rip down that altar to Asherah. And I want you to put mine there because I don't want a rival. I want no competition. It's all about me. And if you will live your life in this way, you're going to be invited to the miraculous as you walk at my side. Because that's what we do. That's what I've invited you into, is literally the miraculous. But I need to have your gift of faith before we can do it. And the reason isn't because he's mean. It's not because he's cruel, and it's not because he's greedy. It's because he knows that unless you give him the whole gift, you won't follow him. Amen. Because by nature that it's a miracle, it means it's going to a level of risk that you and I will not take in our humanity. We won't do it. And God says, give me your faith. I think about the first time I offered my gift of faith to God. It was at Hume Lake. I was in high school. I went there on this camp, winter camp, because there were a bunch of cute girls going. And I thought, hey, which, by the way, if you didn't know, that's why 3/4 of every young man goes to camp, summer or winter. It doesn't matter, because cute girls are going. And then God, in a message that I wasn't supposed to be listening in on, got a hold of my heart, and he asked for the whole gift. Did I fully understand all that was going to happen because of that? No, but I knew it was a step in the process. He didn't ask me to pastor this church then. He just said, hey, Craig, give me that gift of faith. I want your heart, all of it. So I did. And that one act of giving the gift to God has led me throughout my life. And I just think about all the different times that are just so memorable, stand out to me. I think about my wife and I have been married 12 years and we could have no children. And through that whole process of just continuing giving it to God and walking in faith with him, whether he would, what was the timing, and whether it was going to be a yes or a no. It was all about trust. It was all about faith. Is this going to happen? Is this not going to happen? Are we still going to live life at the side of Christ full of joy, choosing it every day anyway? That was led by our gift of faith. When I was diagnosed with cancer, a 5 to 10% chance of standing here today on this stage, cancer clean, was what I was given 6 years ago. But you know what? That was an act of faith. Of saying, God, whether you heal me or whether you take me, I trust you and I will choose joy, because whatever amount of days that I have left, they're yours. They're yours. I'm not going to take them back, and I'm not going to take my faith back, because something that I know is going to happen to me and every other person I know, I'm not going to take it back. I'm going to say, God, I trust you. You have my gift of faith and you will lead me through it. And I finish my chemo and my surgeries and all that's done. And then my wife is diagnosed with cancer 3 months later. And then we have another chance to be led by our faith and say, God, okay, whether you heal her, whether you take her, we're following you. Because in the end, this whole proposition is all about eternity. And we make a huge mistake when we take our eyes off of that. Too many of us are doing that. We're all about today, and that is an afterthought. We need to understand something. This is the afterthought. Eternity is the thought. We had to determine if this gift was going to still stay a gift. Every one of us are in this process of giving the gift and not taking it back. Because you have a free will, you can do what you want with it. And God says, I hope you leave the gift with me. You're free to take it back anytime you want, but please leave the gift with me. This is the process we're in, and this is the process that Gideon was in. Will I put my faith in God? Because it was literally going to cost him his life. If he did this, he could have predicted that it was going to cost his life. And yet God's calling him a mighty hero. And you know what? After this, he was. He was a mighty hero. He took charge of his own life, and he says, I don't care what the rest of my family's going to do or what the rest of this town's going to do. I am going to look to God and nowhere else, because he is my source. And I love the last part of this verse. It says, the Lord is with you. And I have been tempted to ask this question in response to that. Are you sure? Are you sure? Because I'm not necessarily feeling it. Okay, everybody close your eyes. Everybody, close your eyes. If you've ever thought those words, lift a hand. Okay, all right. There's 3 of us. You can put your hands down. Just kidding, it was everybody. Except for like some really holy people over in this section right here, who I'm sure wanted to raise their hands. Are you sure? Because it doesn't always feel like it. And here's what we gained from this story. Gideon didn't feel like it either. He was terrified. He was afraid. And you know what he did? He did it anyway. You and I need to just recognize something. God is with me, and there are times that I feel it. Yeah. God is with me, and there are times that I feel it. Now, I will say that I have learned to recognize his presence. The longer I walk with him, I recognize his presence. And I will tell you, I do recognize his presence every single day in my life. But sometimes it's like a flood. Other times it's like being in a gentle stream, and you can feel the current tug at you sometimes here and there, but the water's completely surrounding you. And so it's present with you so strong. And your senses are still very, very strongly sensing him. And then there's other times when he is like a quiet companion, but you know his presence is there. Yesterday when Becky and I were out on our hike, there were times, I know this is going to be really hard for somebody to believe, that I didn't say a word. And we were just walking. And it was actually quiet. And we knew each other were there. And she wasn't, and I wasn't any less present than, when I start talking again. You can check with her. She'll tell you there was a moment or two. God is present with us. He is with you, and sometimes you're going to feel it like you want to feel it. But my gift of faith is still his, no matter what that feeling or non-feeling is like today. And this is what we're challenged with, is the gift of faith, continually giving it back to God.